Hello, this is Gray Hughes. I'm doing another update on the Austin bombing. There's some really cool forensic information out, as well as the fact that the suspect recorded a 25-minute long video just before he blew himself up. And just kind of basically it goes over some of the tactics they used to actually track this person down. One thing that I found that was pretty strange was that they actually had this other surveillance footage from Fry's Electronics. They said close to 2 weeks ago, okay? 10 days ago was the second set of bombings, okay? And I don't think you would say almost 2 weeks ago if it was 10 days ago, right? So that means they probably had that surveillance footage prior to the March 12th bombings, the one that killed the 17-year-old and his mother, okay? Draylen Mason and his mother. So it must have been, even on the first bombing, the ATF, everybody came in and they probably still looked up to see who bought those components. And they were probably given a massive amount of surveillance footage, and perhaps they just didn't look at that particular piece. But the way it sounds is that they actually had the surveillance footage of, Mark Conditt, the killer, prior to the March 12th bombings, okay? So let's first just watch this Fox News reporter. He gave a pretty good explanation of what's going on. I'll play a whole bunch of different clips for you, though.
They are going over every inch of this small, yellow, fairly nondescript house that you can see here, part of it boarded up. The ATF truck still outside. We are told by the police that inside that home they found components.
Okay, one thing I did want to say is, if you notice, this is the same home here, all right? So let me go to Google Earth for you real quick. You see, this is the same home. When I first saw it, I go, whoa, that's a different color. And because I was nervous that I had the wrong house again, but no, it's the right house. Okay, look at it. So I'm trying to get a clear, okay, there you go. Looks like you can even see the address on there. But just look at the roof line. There's a fence right here. These pillars on the side. And now let's go back over to the footage. And you'll see it's got the same pillars, the roof line. Yeah, you can't see the address right there, but it looks like they've painted the house. Okay, and let's see when Google Earth was. Google Earth, the image is from, 2013. So, there was 5 years have gone by. So that is the same house. You got the fence, the exact same pillars, the roof line. It's just a different color, okay? For those conspiracy people out there that might have pointed that out. All right, so let's get back to the video.
Up. The ATF truck still outside. We are told by the police that inside that home they found components for bomb making, components that match those used in the...
All right, I didn't mean to pause it again, but now I see that that actually does have the address on there. And let's see. This is actually the address that I have down for this one is, 403 2nd Street. So that's the same address. All right. I don't mean to keep going back and forth, but sometimes you have to prove it to people. All right, so there is no doubt. This is 403 2nd Street. I think it's, let's see what they actually listed as. So I wrote it down on there, 403 2nd Street North, okay? And that's right there. Okay, and if we go back to the video, you can actually see the address now on this pillar. They must have moved it from here to on the pillar there, okay? It's right there, 403, all right? Okay, now we can move forward without any question that that's the same house.
string of attacks that terrorized Austin. They would not, however, define the house as a, quote, bomb-making factory. They're also going over today that videotape that Conditt left on his phone. Now, we first got word from our sources that something like this existed almost 24 hours ago. We took a decision to hold off on reporting that until the police confirmed it late last night. And the police chief says, as well as going through how he made each of these bombs, he also explains, without necessarily justifying, why he did what he did. Listen here to the police chief.
He does not at all mention anything about terrorism, nor does he mention anything about hate, but instead it is the outcry of a very challenged young man talking about challenges in his personal life that led him to this point.
A challenged young man who brought death, injury, and widespread fear to the entire city of Austin. Sandra?
And Jonathan, are police confident there are no more bombs out there?
Well, what they told us yesterday at that same press conference where they publicly revealed the existence of this video was that they have, quote, a reasonable level of certainty that there are no more bomb packages out in the public, as they put it. So they are fairly confident now that they have found everything that Mark Conditt prepared. And as I say, they have found more and more bomb-making materials in this house. We've obviously had a total of 6 explosions since March 2nd, killing 2 people, injuring several others. And they are very grateful, the authorities, that he made the mistake, Conditt, of walking into that Federal Express store, and they were able to get the surveillance video of him there and identify, and that, of course, ultimately led them to him sitting in his car outside a hotel north of Austin. That Nissan Pathfinder older model was taken away, and as we now know, Conditt used the last...
Hey, you can see right there, there's actually bullet holes. These aren't going to be from inside. I think this is... well, at least some of these for sure. Maybe some fragments actually blasted out. But, you know, one of the officers did fire at him. So perhaps these are some bullet holes here, and maybe some others are actually fragments exiting the vehicle from the explosion. I don't know. I'm not a ballistics expert. All right.
Of his active bombs to kill himself.
Let me get that last sentence.
Older model was taken away, and as we now know, Conditt used the last of his active bombs to kill himself.
Okay, now this next video we're going to watch here kind of pieces together everything over the last 3 weeks or so, okay? But it's pretty interesting how they put it together, and near the end they actually show some vehicles being exploded and how they train their officers to be able to put back together bombs. Okay, so this is some good forensic information so that you'll know what they're actually doing when there's other bombs that go off. So on any terror event, anything like that, this is what the ATF does. All right, so let's play this one.
This is the culmination of 3 very long weeks for our community.
For the first night in 19 days, residents of Austin will rest a little easier. The man believed to be responsible for terrorizing their city is now dead. Investigators say they were able to zero in on the suspect, 23-year-old Mark Anthony Coditt, before dawn today.
We ultimately located the vehicle that this suspect was known to be driving, and in fact we found that at a hotel right up the road here in Round Rock.
As they work quickly to set up a perimeter and assemble a SWAT team from the Austin Police Department, Conditt actually exited the hotel, got into the vehicle, and drove away. Quietly, police began to pursue the vehicle.
The vehicle ended up stopping in the bar ditch on the side of the road behind us. As members of the Austin Police Department SWAT team approached the vehicle, the suspect detonated a bomb inside the vehicle, knocking one of our SWAT officers back, and one of our SWAT officers fired at the suspect as well.
A massive explosion knocks them backwards, blows out all the windows of the car.
So as you can see underneath that blue tarp, well, you can't see, but underneath the blue tarp is Mark Conditt, the killer. All right, now in a couple moments here, they're actually going to take some photos of something, but it's not underneath the tarp. They're going to take a picture of something that the person in all white with the cowboy hat on is holding. So maybe he's taking items off of Conditt, going to lay them on a little board so they can take pictures of those items really quickly. You know, maybe the watch that he was wearing, something like that. Definitely taking pictures there, though. Yeah, so this video is only like 2.5 minutes long, but you know, you can use it as a reference. You know, if you want to look something up, try to figure something out. Looks to me like that larger van in the back slammed into Conditt's SUV, and the officer ran out. Two of them ran out. One of them got blown back by the blast, and the other one was able to fire at the door. Or fire at Conditt, really, but I don't know if it hit the door. All right, you can see that they're labeling different parts on the ground, and you see those little pink markers. All right, so there you have it. There's the helicopter footage. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a longer, the rest of that longer video, and see how things played out and how they were able to investigate, okay?
Out all the windows of the car and kills Conditt.
You heard he was dead. What were your initial feelings?
I was just glad it was over. That's all. Honestly, I was glad it was over. I'm glad we did everything we did. We did our job, and we did it the best way that we could.
Tonight, new details are emerging.
We have, at this point, located a recording that the suspect in this incident made,
which shed light on Conditt's motive.
It was a confession. What I can tell you, having listened to that recording, it is the outcry of a very challenged young man talking about challenges in his personal life that led him to this point.
Authorities say that on the recording, Conditt described in detail the 6 bombs he constructed and the 7th device that he detonated on himself this morning. The bombings, which killed 2 and wounded at least 5, began on March 2nd. At 6:55 a.m., 39-year-old Anthony House was killed after picking up a package dropped off at his front door. Just 10 days later, a few miles away from that first bombing,
we got 2 people down. It looks like one in the door entry.
Another deadly blast from a planted package. This time, 17-year-old Draylon Mason was killed, his mother critically injured, and his neighbors horrified.
I saw an ambulance with my neighbor on a stretcher. And so that was very terrifying for me.
5.5 miles away, another explosion. Just a few hours later, another planted bomb critically injuring a 75-year-old woman, Esperanza Herrera.
All of a sudden, we just heard an explosion, and I just felt it move the ground.
Police evacuated the neighborhood, putting small children on buses.
You need help?
and alerted everyone not to touch any suspicious packages.
We've got a pattern of incidents that have occurred in this community over the past 10 days, and so that we believe are related.
6 days later, just a mile away, a fourth bombing and a possible new tactic. A bomb rigged to a tripwire. The victims this time were two unsuspecting bicyclists, Will Grote and Colton Mathis. Then yesterday, that fifth bomb detonating in a FedEx facility. 5 bombs exploded, but the sixth, an unexploded device recovered from FedEx, turned into a key piece of evidence. Police zeroing in on Conditt after catching him on surveillance video trying to mail a package from a shipping center in Southwest Austin. Seen here, they say, in an apparent disguise, wearing gloves, investigators then matched these images to his receipts from FedEx, where police say he used the pseudonym Kelly Kilmore. They also found his receipts for the nails, which they say he bought at a Home Depot, and the batteries he used in those devices, which according to...
I mean, really? Kelly Kilmore? Like, man. I mean, so this guy puts out a manifesto type recording of himself talking about how, oh, people were so mean to him or whatever the hell it talks about. And then he makes a name called Kelly Kilmore, and he's going to kill random people. See, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. These people, they invent things so that, you know, maybe they don't, so there's an explanation for their family or something. They're just sociopaths, okay, that like to kill. All right, so everyone needs to just realize that. You know, there isn't always a reason. You know, every witness says that, you know, they have great parents and everything is fine. And, you know, I'm not saying that I know all, you know, if that's true or whatever, but the thing is, you know, the thing is, people need to take responsibilities for their own actions. Okay, quit blaming other people. Okay, I know things happen to people that are horrible. Everyone's life isn't great. Mine wasn't great. But, you know, I've never been in jail or prison or anything because I choose not to do those things. Everybody in their life, you know, has a moment where they hate somebody or they're really angry at the world or so forth. The difference is, you know, people decide not to do anything. Okay, that's people's choice, free will. Okay, so when people blow up people or murder people, you know, serial killer types that are just sort of killing random people because they want to, there's no excuse for that. Zero. Okay, so they can't all be treated, you know. Well, sure they can be treated if you cut out half their brain and keep them locked in a prison. Okay, that's it. All right, so let's move on to some more of this clip here, and it's pretty interesting stuff.
KTRK he bought online.
Like any bombing investigation, we try to identify all the components, and then we break that down to where those components are sold and who would have bought those, and if they bought multiple components.
All this led to that pre-dawn encounter with police. Following that, investigators then moved on to Conditt's home in Pflugerville, searching for a possible motive and any other active threats.
When you go into a bomb maker's location, it gives you a real flavor of how good they really are. What equipment did he have? Was he getting better at this? Because you really want to sort of get inside his bomb-making head at this point.
Meanwhile, Pflugerville's police and Texas Highway Patrol going door to door, advising residents to evacuate their homes and businesses immediately.
I will ask the Pflugerville residents to go to their library or their recreation center, which is open till 9 o'clock tonight, if you don't have another place to go to.
Authorities ultimately do find bomb-making materials inside his house.
There is componentry in there that makes us believe, have a high degree of certainty, that it is the same components that we have found in all the other devices.
Conditt's family releasing a statement saying, "We are devastated and broken at the news that our family member could be involved in such an awful way. We had no idea of the darkness that Mark must have been in. Right now, our prayers are for those families who have lost loved ones, for those impacted in any way, and for the soul of our Mark. We are grieving, and we are in shock.
Is it your understanding that he built these bombs before the bombing spree happened, or was he doing it sort of based on your investigations to try to stay one step ahead?
So it's a little hard, you know, we know when he bought some of the components. We don't know when he bought every single one of the components, so it's hard to say whether he was building them along the way or he built them and, you know, so to speak, had them on the shelf.
Investigators say that despite the difference in how the bombs were made, each one provided detailed clues.
So to the public, they may have looked different, but when the ATF bomb technicians were able to put those devices back together, the components that were used were very similar.
So you actually had ATF technicians piece together physically these bombs after they exploded?
Yes, after the second one, we knew exactly what the first two looked like.
In 3, 2, 1.
Last year, my colleague Pierre Thomas got a rare look at how FBI bomb technicians train police and federal agents on what to look for after a bombing. In this training exercise, authorities set off a series of car bombs. The investigative premise is that if you hunt for the blown-apart pieces at the bomb detonation epicenter, you can essentially find the bomb and piece it back together. Look there. Wires, electrical components, a cell phone. Inside the vehicle, there may be fingerprints or DNA to be collected. Even the screws used as shrapnel may lead to a store where there might be a surveillance camera. That calling card evident in the Austin case.
One of the things that was consistent in these devices that there was nails and screws in each one of them.
And tonight, questions still swirling about that 23-year-old bomb maker. How a troubled man could turn so violent.
Yeah, so here's another video, and it shows some of the surveillance footage inside the Fry's Electronics and a discussion with, it looks like, a manager at Fry's. Okay, so let's get started with that one.
Investigators have also been piecing together the additional steps police took to track down this suspect. We've learned the FBI was able to match his cell phone pings to each of the bombing sites.
And they were able to identify him on surveillance video at stores where he dropped off packages and bought bomb-making supplies. Eyewitnesses there were also able to help police pinpoint his car, which led them to his driver's license and then, more importantly, his identity.
And then to track him down, they looked at the materials he used and where he purchased them. One of those stores was Fry's, an electronics store in North Austin, where he made a purchase late last month.
And tonight, a store manager tells KXAN investigator Jody Barr receipts at Fry's matched a credit card at the hotel where the suspect might have been staying.
He was purchasing some battery holders such as these here.
Jen Meyer is standing in the same spot bomber Mark Conditt stood just 3 days before the first bomb exploded in Austin. This February 27th surveillance video from Fry's Electronics shows Conditt walk into the store and purchase more than 20 electronic parts. Conditt spends nearly 20 minutes inside before paying for the items and walking out the door.
So the ATF comes in with a subpoena in hand. What were they looking for from you?
They were looking for any invoices that we may have and any purchases or surveillance video that we may have on him.
What did those invoices show was purchased here?
It showed approximately 20 small components. Again, the battery packs and some other resistors and stuff of that nature.
Is this
Hey, one side note, the song playing in the background, which I've never actually heard in a Fry's Electronics, much less any other store, is Creek Alley by Mamas and Papas. It's one of my favorite songs, actually.
an odd purchase at the time? Is this something that people would just ordinarily purchase?
No, we do have a lot of people that come in and buy components, so it's not that unusual that he was making these purchases.
By the time of the subpoena, investigators had already collected parts from the bombs that had already exploded around Austin. Meyer says she turned over a list of receipts from 30 different customers who bought similar items as Conditt. It wasn't until that FedEx surveillance video that investigators had a name of the prime suspect to match up with one of those invoices and the surveillance videos at Fry's Electronics.
So that's an interesting point right there, is that they were given 30 receipts of people who bought that similar item. Okay, so that's why it's law enforcement probably had the surveillance footage of him and 29 other people prior. Okay, but they just weren't able to connect or figure out which person was which at that point. Okay, which person was actually the one that they're looking for out of 30. Okay, so that would make sense that law enforcement had the surveillance prior, but they weren't able to do any investigations at that point. But why not send, like, if you know who those 30 people are, send officers to all of their homes and maybe surveil them. I'm not sure if there's some laws or behind that, but I mean, it seems like you could sort of just trail people and see what they're doing. Okay, it might have perhaps stopped at least the bombing on the 18th with the trigger wire.
Electronics. Did the investigators ever clue you in that, hey, some of these components may be involved in this bombing investigation?
Yes, they did tell us that.
When you watch that video back again, this just looks like any ordinary customer interacting with your employees here, checked out at the register. Nothing looked out of place.
Correct. He looked like hundreds of customers we have every day.
Jody Barr, KXAN investigates.
But it wasn't just those purchases that led law enforcement to the hotel where Conditt was staying. As we mentioned, KXAN investigators have also learned cell phone triangulation played a big part. That's when a cell phone's location data is collected from nearby cell towers. Today, with the prevalence of 4G technology, it's more effective than ever. It helps GPS track the phone within 5 to 10 feet. It can also provide historical location details. It can even ping the phone, forcing it to reveal its exact location.
Okay, so what I did right here is I put together a composite that has the suspect at Fry's on the right, and on the left, the FedEx image that we've all seen with the blonde hair where he's got the wig on, the gloves. Okay, the general overall body size looks correct. Okay, when you see some of these images, he looks thin, like he has a thin face, but in reality, he's not really that thin. Okay, and he's chunky. And look on his left wrist, you see the dark watch band. Not as many people wear watches these days because we all have cell phones with clocks on them. Also, he's got the dark shoes. They look similar. And overall body size is the same, okay? And we know that he's buying components that were found in the bomb. So this is the same person, people. We've already got the wacko conspiracy theorists out there already chiming in with, oh, he's a patsy. He's just a fall guy. It's a false flag. Every single event for these people is a false flag, okay? That's not the case here. This is a case where there's a killer who went out and bought parts to make bombs, and then he went out and he killed people with those bombs that he made. Okay, it's not really that confusing. That's what he did, right? And law enforcement did some incredible, quote, detective work to track this guy down. It's probably what they're able to use in general, but there's a lot of cases that haven't been solved, and you would hope that they could have used some of the same type of, the same resources, the same information. I mean, there's a case that in Delphi that you would think that they could have used some of the same cell phone technology to maybe track the killer, but if you don't have a cell phone with you, you're out of luck on that part in terms of the killer having a cell phone. Okay. Now, I think there's another part here. There's actually an interview with one of the neighbors of the parents. Maybe we can listen to that and get a sense of how he felt about the family and Mark Conditt, the killer, as he was growing up. All right? So let's take a look at that.
Conditts and your opinion of them?
I'm their next door neighbor.
Tell me about the family. Are they a nice family, strange family? How would you describe them?
I would describe them as an extremely nice family. The kids are all great. And it's been a pleasure. I think we've all lived here now. It's been about 16, 17 years. We've been here almost 20.
Was there ever any indication that he had any type of inclination toward this type of alleged activity?
nothing that I would be aware of. He seemed.
Yeah, and you can see that's that original home that I thought was the house that Mark lived at. But this is actually the family home, the parents' home. I may have said that earlier in the video, but I'm just repeating that this is the family's house, and Mark actually lived in the same neighborhood. Mark the serial killer, right?
He seemed like a very normal kid, which is what everybody says, or most neighbors say in these type of situations.
Isn't that true? Everybody always says, wow, he was such a good kid. Who would ever expect that?
But, you know, over the years, there's nothing that I could point to.
How would you describe Mark in your dealings with him?
He was a kid, neighborhood kid. I always believed that he was very smart.
Tell me what you know about his family, his mom, his dad, their business.
His mom and dad are really, I would say they were great people. They're very friendly, very nice. I'm not sure at all. I know that Pat, the father, is, I believe, for the most part, self-employed. I believe in the electronic industry. I know that I don't believe Denise works per se. I think they're in the Amway system somewhere.
Sounded like the father worked in electronics and is self-employed. Maybe that's where Mark maybe learned about how to use electronics, and that maybe his wife works for Amway, you know, the multi-level marketing company.
But that's about all I can tell you.
Tell me about his siblings, how many there are, and what do you think they could be going through at this moment?
Can't imagine what any of them are going through this moment. He's got 3 sisters, I believe 21, 18, and 14, something like that. And just a really nice, common family, if you can say it that way. They've always been extremely nice, and being with my grandkids gone and everything, we don't have a lot of contact as far as the kids like we used to when they were little.
Okay, so there you have it with that. The interview with a neighbor. Listen, I think this case, it was crazy when it was going on. It seemed like the person was a little bit more advanced than they really were, just based on the types of bombs. They obviously didn't know anything about, you know, surveillance techniques. And a lot of times when you hear, we all like to have the answers of how they figured things out. But the thing is when all this information comes out, the next bomber is going to listen to all the techniques that we've all figured out about and not do those things when he or she, you know, does something similar. Okay? You know, like the cell phone information, the, you know, receipts, going into, you know, the store, how that works out and everything, how they can track parts. So, you know, when a serial bomber or a serial killer or a murderer or any of these barbarians that actually exist in our society go out, they now can have sort of a blueprint of what not to do. So while it's great that we all get to hear it, I just wonder sometimes, you know, us needing or wanting to know should be trumped by, do we really need to know? Okay? They could just give really vague information. Just say we were able to track him digitally, and or something like that. Although, you know, it's hard to put together a story without that kind of information. But, you know, yeah, it's sort of this weird, you know, balancing act. All right? So I think the next thing that's going to be coming out, I think the sort of the story of how, you know, he was able to get the parts, and, you know, maybe we'll learn more about how he learned how to build the bombs, and then we'll probably learn more about what was in that 25-minute long video. I think that would be something worthwhile to release to the public and let us see that. Okay, so you can see, you know, what reason this person is claiming to be the reason why he killed all these innocent people that had nothing to do with him. Okay, now if it was some bullying issue, why didn't he go, you know, attack some of the people that were bullies to him? Okay, this guy just killed innocent people that had nothing to do with him. All right, so I don't give a damn really what he says on the video, but I'd like to see it just to see what he was saying. Okay, because what he did was absolutely barbaric, and he killed innocent people. And yes, that really is the killer. Okay, everybody. You know, when I say everybody, I mean the everybody who is into the conspiracy theories on every case that's ever popular in the media. Do you ever notice that? These people never glom onto just a basic case and go, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. They always come up with, every time there's a really huge case in the media, they say, oh, this one is a false flag. You know, and it's like, they claim that because it is popular and it's just being used to brainwash society. And it's just bogus, okay? Why don't you do that for all these other cases that are exactly the same? They just didn't get national attention. Oh, I see. Yeah, because that doesn't work. You know, you need the popular case. You know, so, I mean, just recently, you've got the Las Vegas shooting. You've got the Kanika Jenkins case. And you have this one. And every one of them, people say there's something fake going on. It's a cover-up. You know, Las Vegas shooting one seems like law enforcement's keeping what they know from us, but I don't think anything's being covered up. Well, unless you consider that covering something up. It's not a conspiracy theory yet, although that case has more elements that somebody might, you know, glom onto. Right? So the thing is every case isn't a conspiracy, people. Sometimes there's just really, you know, I almost put a swear word in there, but sometimes there's just really horrible people in society, and they do horrible things. All right? And they can come up with excuses, but that doesn't explain it. Okay? There's just evil in this world. All right? So I think I might do another video at some point coming up if there's some dramatic new information. But this will probably be the last one for at least a few days. Again, unless something crazy comes out that I need to get out to share, because I told people that I was going to update on this case whenever there was something new. And that's why I put out this video today, because there was a bunch of new information out there. Okay, so until next time, I hope everybody's safe out there. And I'll do my best to keep keep you informed with what I know. I'm not saying that my opinion is always correct, but I try to put out opinions that are based on facts that I'm looking at. Okay, and then sometimes the facts that I got, the quote facts, are changed in the media. So I go by what I'm being told. For example, they said Conditt was 24 years old, right? And it turns out he was 23 years old. Of course, conspiracy theorists will say, well, what happened to the 24-year-old? Okay, so anyways, until next time, everybody, be safe.